Good morning and welcome to Missoula Real Estate Today. This is Denny Bedard. Missoula Real Estate Today is presented by Diane Beck of Windermere Real Estate. Along with her trusted partners, Diane provides complete service for your real estate transaction and brings us guests who provide useful information on industry-related topics and trends. And now, Missoula Real Estate Today on News Talk, KGVO.
So glad you are with us on Missoula Real Estate Today as we roll into the month of December. A happy holiday season to one and all. And my guests, I got two of them this week on the show. From WGM Group, we have Jamie Urbacher. Jamie is a senior planner, and Jeff Smith, principal engineer and CEO with WGM Group. I welcome you both. And Jamie, I'll start with you. The get acquainted, I guess I should say reacquainted, because WGM has been on the show before. It's been quite a while. What is WGM Group? Why don't we start there?
Thanks, Denny. So WGM Group is a multidisciplinary team. We bring expertise and creativity to projects involving community design, infrastructure, and natural resource management. We work closely with clients both on the public and the private sector, bringing design and development of successful projects. We have a reputation for delivering projects based on common sense, strong relationships, political savviness, and solid ethics. Our goal is to strengthen communities for a resilient future through insightful design.
Very good. Now let's talk about your position as senior planner, what that entails, and what led you to pursue a career with WGM.
Sure. So I've been with WGM for about 3 years now.
Okay.
In this role, I work closely with all sections of the company, including the landscape architects, civil engineers, environmental team, GIS, CAD drafting, land surveyors, and transportation team. Should also include water rights and water resources as well.
All right, sure.
So a number of my projects involve subdivision design, gaining entitlements through zoning efforts, and public planning processes, including growth policy updates. WGM has been a really good place to work. I chose to pursue a career with them because they truly value the communities that they work in and equally value their employees. They take the time to ensure quality proposals and actively participate in the community that we work in. We continue to see our communities grow.
Yeah.
And one thing WGM well is plan for the future. This includes infrastructure, natural resource protections, and connecting developments through design.
Excellent. Jeff, same question for you. What led you to WGM Group and what all your position entails?
Thanks, Denny.
Sure.
So I've been at WGM Group for 18 years now.
Very good.
Actually out of high school, went into the nursing track and started in a nursing program. And I found myself drifting away from that, and I was spending more time in the commercial fishing industry than I was at school. So I came to this revelation that nursing wasn't quite the right track for me. I'd always had an acumen for engineering, so I happened to enroll in a university engineering program and fell in love with it. I actually decided to pursue a master's in business administration after school, so I moved to Missoula for that. And while I was getting my graduate degree, I worked for a geotechnical firm in town and did a lot of work with WGM Group on some of their projects, geotechnical and materials testing during construction. And I really respected the approach they brought to the quality of their plans, the quality of their projects, and the kind of holistic view that the company took towards development and infrastructure. So as I wrapped up my graduate program, I was actually on the way out of town to head to Seattle to beat the streets for some interviews, and I stopped by and talked with Woody Germany, who was the CEO at the time, and he and I had worked together a little bit before, but really hit it off. And like before I left for town that afternoon, I had a job with WGM Group. So 18 years later, what a ride! Actually, just earlier this week was running through a list of old projects as we were preparing a proposal, and I think that I've worked on about 1,200 projects in the last 18 years.
Wow.
The breadth of work that we do across the community is really exciting.
Sure.
I get to plug in on a variety of levels with our projects, from our planning through our design, construction, and then final occupancy of structures.
Yeah.
We work on really all of the horizontal elements of projects around town. So your streets, roads, sewer, drainage, water, landscaping, landscape architecture. And often we're, working in conjunction with architecture and multidisciplinary teams for the vertical elements of projects. So it's really exciting to get to plug in a meaningful way for development of the community and addressing needs as they arise.
Gosh, what an interesting career path. That's a great story. Missoula Real Estate Today, presented by Diane Beck of Windermere Real Estate, here on News Talk KGVO. And my guest, Jamie Urbacher, Senior Planner, and Jeff Smith, Principal Engineer and CEO with WGM Group. Jeff, I'm going to stay with you. Now, this company founded back in 1966. What was the mission back then? I know that was way before your time. How has that grown and evolved over the, last 5+ decades?
Yeah, it's been quite a ride for the history of our company as well.
Right.
We actually, in the 60s, started as a civil engineering and really heavily survey-based firm. So back in the late 60s, we did a lot of work for the Forest Service. We had 11 or 12 survey crews and actually owned a helicopter at the time.
Oh.
So we did a lot of remote survey work. A lot of our founders and some of our more influential long-term leaders in our company, Jerry Sabula and Nick Kaufman, for example, started in that era as surveyors on survey crews and dropped off out in the field from the helicopter and completing survey work.
Little less technology back then, huh?
Yeah, what a difference 5 decades makes on the technology front.
Gosh.
We since that time we have expanded our civil engineering offerings. We've got a pretty solid, really solid transportation group that developed about 25 years ago that has formed the backbone of a lot of our infrastructure work.
Right.
Added a lot of infrastructure capacity, sewer, water, storm drainage. We now have offices in Kalispell and Bozeman as well as Missoula. Got about 20 folks in both of those offices in Kalispell and Bozeman, and a little over 60 in Missoula now. Since that time, we've added water rights experts, landscape architects, increased our survey capacity, got an environmental engineering group and water resource and natural resources group that is really tackling a lot of diverse projects on a lot of different fronts, lots of resource-based conservation style projects.
Yeah.
What am I missing, Gene?
I don't know. Anything to add to that, Jamie?
I don't know. I'm just
Yeah.
wishing we still had a helicopter, Jeff.
Yeah.
We'll work on that.
You two could have landed on the roof of our building here. That would have been pretty slick.
Yeah.
Jamie, so many facets to what you do and what you can offer people as we're starting to chronicle here. You're a planning, engineering, and environmental company. Can you explain what those involve and how do they come together on a project?
Sure. So planning and engineering, certainly work hand in hand on almost every project that we're involved in. We generally start out with a due diligence review of the property where we can consider the cultural and physical characteristics of the property. So our survey crew, they can collect data on the existing conditions of the site, while our surveyors and drafters, they review the title reports and prepare exhibits. Land planners such as myself, we can review for the cultural characteristics of the property, including zoning and growth policy recommendations. The civil engineers, they review for existing and planned utilities. And the transportation group, they can identify planned motorized and non-motorized connections. As Jeff mentioned, we have our environmental team, and they consider the physical constraints of the property, including steep slopes, soils, floodplains, riparian areas, and water rights. Many of those which we really look to protect. Those natural resources make our community, and so certainly we value those. And, depending on the project and the complexity of it, really depends on who all's involved in our project. But as you can see, we offer a full suite of services and, bring in as many players as we need to for each project.
I know. When Jeff said you had 60 employees, I think, gosh, that's a lot. After having listened to that, I'm thinking, that's probably not too many. You're finding a lot for everybody to do, right?
Yeah, no doubt.
Wow. I would guess architects come to mind when you explain what it is you do. How are you similar, if at all, and how are you different?
So architects, they really build the buildings, whereas we create the environment that the buildings are placed in. So we commonly work with architects. It could be from anywhere on an individual site design to a large master plan development that includes multifamily, commercial. But we do this so that the lots as they're created, they work with the building type that our client is looking at, but also work with the open space that we create so we can incorporate that into the building design and make a more livable environment for those that will eventually reside or occupy the structures.
Got it.
Yeah.
Missoula Real Estate Today, presented by Diane Beck of Windermere Real Estate on News Talk KGVO, and my guest, Jamie Urbacher, along with Jeff Smith with WGM Group. And Jeff, back to you. You have personnel in a number of cities throughout Montana, as you mentioned. I think you used Bozeman and Kalispell as examples. Do you find, city ordinances, rules, regulations, requirements, all that stuff, does that differ significantly from town to town in Montana? And if so, I imagine you have to adapt a fair amount.
There are some fundamentals. There are a lot of fundamentals that are the same across jurisdictions, but we definitely experience different zoning ordinances in each town, which we've got. Thankfully, we have Jamie on our team and a lot of great regulatory planners to help navigate those processes and make sure that the projects that we're designing meet the goals of the communities. Certainly, environmental regulations are pretty consistent across the state.
Okay.
But I think the biggest nuances would be in the zoning code, subdivision regulations, and a lot of the building codes. Specific building design standards vary from jurisdiction to jurisdiction based on that community's goals for, what they want their community to be.
You don't have to mention a specific example. You don't have to mention a specific town, but have you ever found yourself looking at some of those ordinances and found a few quirky to the point where you go, what?
Sometimes there are.
There's got to be a what in WGM Group once in a while.
Sometimes there are cases that haven't been tested yet. Like, for instance, certain situations that maybe weren't considered or weren't even options at the time when zoning ordinances were drafted. So I think we all do our best to stay on top and keep contemporary, but there are always challenges. And sometimes, I don't think it's unique to us or public agencies or public employees as well. There's certainly some regulations that we're all working together with.
And I would imagine too, you see these stories about crazy laws that are still on the books in certain states or in certain cities. I imagine there's a few things that you run into that are on those that are probably antiquated that, they just never got around to taking them off the books.
That's certainly the case. Yep. We definitely find that most of our communities in Western Montana are pretty proactive in addressing those. So when they come up, we figure them out together.
All right. Jamie, back to you. The process, let's get into that. A builder, a realtor, what have you, they contact WGM Group with a vision of a larger scale development. Where do you begin to be a part of that?
Well, we hope from the very beginning. It is certainly much easier to work with a client who comes to us with a vision that we can then help shape and mold based on those physical and cultural characteristics of the property. And so, again, certainly if they come to us in the very beginning, that is ideal for us. But it's not unheard of that, they get partway through a process and then they need our help. So then we have to do a little bit of backtracking, but it can certainly be done.
How about you, Jeff? What kinds of challenges will you face on any given project? Are there commonalities, or is each project pretty darn unique?
Each project is pretty darn unique, but there are commonalities. I think the largest challenge we face today, and this isn't news to anyone, but escalating costs, and then the interest rates where they are, buying power for single-family residential is certainly different than it was a year ago. So I think the financial challenges around development today are probably our biggest and toughest to overcome. Then there's always, there are specific stakeholder interests that sometimes don't align with the community's interest and community goals for planning and implementation of growth policy and community planning that sometimes are difficult to align. That's probably a commonality across all land development projects.
Jamie, getting back to you when you were talking about just a minute ago, when you take on a project and you do get to start from ground zero, which is preferred, right? Yep. That must be, how interesting is that? I mean, when you're meeting with somebody and you're listening to their vision or their idea, maybe there are some visual aids to see that, but how interesting and fascinating is that to listen to somebody present that kind of, I don't know if I should say dream, but the idea or the plan that they have and presented to you from square
From
one.
scratch, yeah.
From scratch.
Yeah, no, I think it's great. And, we work with a number of really great clients who come to us with that great vision. And to get in their mind and hear their excitement and be able to build that, your dream, as you say, sure. is really exciting. And to be able to also know that we are building a community and that it's not just a single development, that it really is part of our community, and the attributes that it brings with are just fascinating to me.
Missoula Real Estate Today, presented by Diane Beck of Windermere Real Estate here on News Talk KGVO. And my guests are Jamie Urbacher, Senior Planner, and Jeff Smith, Principal Engineer and CEO with WGM Group here in Missoula. Also want to say thank you to some of Diane Beck's marketing partners that help bring you the show every weekend. That includes Miles Link at Opportunity Bank of Montana, Rob Fleming with Man Mortgage, and Carol Blodgett at MakeItMissoula.com. Getting back to Jeff and to Jamie here. I guess I'll get back to Jeff. What have been some of the more satisfying projects, Jeff, that you've been involved with at WGM Group?
It's a long list.
That's okay. We've still got plenty of time. I want to hear about them.
We've certainly...
and I'll probably go, oh, yeah, right?
Yeah, I hope so.
Yeah.
Certainly played a meaningful role our company has in the development of some of the neighborhoods in Missoula.
Okay.
And, my opportunity to be involved in some of that's been really rewarding. From south end of town, the Maloney Ranch neighborhoods.
Right.
That was a project that was kind of going on in its inception when I started. To the north end of town, the Windsor Park, Canyon Creek area, and that kind of first really dense new urban style development. To 44 Ranch and Heron's Landing out on Mullen Road. To some of the more urban residential developments like Hellgate Meadows and now Hellgate Village.
Okay.
Kind of just on the east side of Flynn Lane, and lots in between. I've had the opportunity to work as the engineer for several of the institutions around town as well, like the University of Montana. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting. I was just running through the list of projects that I've got to work on campus over the last 2 decades now. Starting in 2005, and we rebuilt steam tunnels all across the campus. So I spent about a year crawling and crouching through the steam tunnels and kind of learning the network there and learning all the ins and outs of campus.
Yeah. Could you give me a tour of that by any chance?
I'm sure we could. Outline that.
That might be kind of cool.
Yeah, the facilities director over there could probably help us out there. A lot of the new buildings at Champion Center at the stadium. I got to work on one of the stadium expansions. Bunch of different campus program buildings, interdisciplinary science, Anderson Hall, Native American Center.
Yeah.
Gilkey Academic Center, Athlete Academic Center, some work at the library, the M Trailhead, and quite a few others. And then a lot of the Missoula County Public Schools bond projects.
Okay.
In over the last really 6 years, we've improved all of the facilities that the MCPS operates. Specific projects that I got to work on: the Rattlesnake Elementary upgrade, Lowell, Franklin, Hellgate, Sentinel, Big Sky, Washington, Franklin, Russell, Porter. Got to work on the VOAG's facility, their meat processing facility. That was a really interesting one, designing a sewer system to accommodate the waste that comes along with that.
Right.
was an interesting process. Lots of public infrastructure projects along the way as well, sewer, water, roads.
Yeah.
Russell Street is a project that I think most folks are probably familiar with if you drive from Broadway down to Wyoming. So that new bridge and that new urban streetscape there is something that we're really proud of.
Yeah. Don't live far from that, so I got to tell you, I love that one. And never thought I'd love a traffic light so much as I like at Russell in Wyoming. That's a dandy too. Jamie, how about you? Some of the more satisfying projects you've been involved with at WGM.
Yeah, sure. Clearly, I don't have the list that Jeff is going to have.
That's okay.
His 18 years of experience, woo. But no, I think some of my most satisfying projects are the attainable housing projects. Even if it just includes simple due diligence reviews for things like the old Hellgate Village mobile home park out off of Mullen Road. They were able to turn that into a resident-owned community. So allowing those tenants to stay in place and not have to be relocated upon a sale of a mobile home park. I mean, that's pretty beneficial to our community here. And so definitely like being involved in those. Another project that we're currently working on right now is going to preserve 7 of 9 acres of farmland, prime farm soils, and then allow for a farm store and cafe and small residential development. But the preservation of those farm soils, again, something very important within our community and a value that we need to retain whenever possible. So, yeah.
From being dropped off in a helicopter in the 60s to today, I guess either one of you could answer that question. But Jamie, maybe start with you. What changes in technology have you seen over the years that you feel have made you a more efficient, productive company?
Sure. Well, certainly during the COVID, when it was at its highest, we seen improvements in Microsoft Teams, Zoom, Google Meets, all of those platforms that allow us to share a screen, remote into public meetings. Those certainly made us more productive, but I think also made government agencies more productive as well. Other softwares that I feel have been improved over time are like SurveyMonkey. So where we can go out to the public and say, what are your values? And we can capture that through a survey online versus necessarily going into that community. Again, this was something that we used quite a bit during COVID. And so I think those are the two biggest technology advances that we've seen during COVID that helped us be a better company. Jeff might have some more thoughts and ideas there.
Yeah. Anything to add to that, Jeff?
I still remember the first time I used Google Earth. We were designing the Russell Street side of Tremper Shopping Center, that renovation there. And it was the first time we had software that allowed us to stay in our seat at our desk and not have to drive out to verify every little thing.
Okay.
And the advances that have come along with that.
I'm sorry, how many years ago was that one? That was
06, I think.
Right,
so about
17, 18,
yeah,
16, 17.
16 years ago.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Along that same line, we've a lot of the municipalities and counties have developed really detailed GIS systems and cadastral systems where we can review property boundary information, legal information. We can get a lot of infrastructure record drawings. It's really important to understand the limitations of that software. Our surveyors tell me that GIS stands for Get It Surveyed, which I couldn't agree with more. But there's a real high level of due diligence and information gathering that you can complete from your desk. So saving a lot of vehicle miles on the roads and a lot of time with that technology.
Missoula Real Estate Today, presented by Diane Beck of Windermere Real Estate on News Talk KGVO, and my guest, Jamie Urbacher, Senior Planner, and Jeff Smith, Principal Engineer and CEO with WGM Group here in Missoula and beyond. It's quite the Montana empire, really. Jeff, as far as growth and progress in design, when you look at the landscape of Missoula and the surrounding area, what do you see? Is it a healthy area? Are there things you'd like to see move forward in a different manner? How do we grade out when you start looking at those types of factors?
I think one thing that's very unique about Missoula in the West really is how dense our community is developed. We haven't sprawled all the way across the valley. Mm-hmm. I think our community leaders and planners and building and consulting community has worked together well to build with foresight. Particularly in the Mullen Build area, and also out at the Y. Jamie, maybe some context on what has gone on at the Y and where we're headed there.
Yeah. So over the last few years, Missoula County has implemented a land use element and taken a lot of public feedback to create that document. And so what that is establishing where uses should go and at what densities those should be developed at. Following that, they did a complete overhaul of their zoning code, which was originally approved back in 1976, if you can believe it. And so they have developed a code that is now contemporary and responsive to the community needs. In addition to that, they recently adopted a tax increment finance district out there known as the YTED. And so together, all of those elements have led the county to now go into Y infrastructure planning element that maybe Jeff can explore a little bit more for us.
Yeah, thanks, Jamie. It's really exciting to think about the county being able to implement the vision that was laid out in that land use element that Jamie mentioned. You know, the residential density and also the industrial base that exists that will be expanded over time. There's certainly major opportunities on that front now. So right now the county's undergoing the process of selecting a team to lead an infrastructure planning effort at the Y to address sewer, water, transportation, storm drainage, broadband, and maybe a couple other elements that are important for that type of growth to occur. Really a great deal of foresight and a lot of community planning has led to where they're at now, and it's exciting to see where that goes.
Is any of that you're working on? I want to say, and I know it's been at least a couple of years, maybe longer than that, and you can help me out with this. Some of the area a little bit to the northwest of the Missoula airport, that was annexed not terribly long ago, right? Is that some of the area you're talking about, or are we still talking about beyond that?
So the current effort is just beyond that.
Okay.
So, yeah, a couple years back,
Yep.
The Missoula Development Park area was annexed, which is just to the north of the airport.
Yes.
So this work now that the county's working on starts at Butler Creek essentially, and extends to the west and then north about to Waldo Road up Highway 93, and also west of Deschaux Lane a little bit.
And I don't know if that's neither here nor there, but when you got to talking about it, I remember talking about it was actually during a fireworks awareness campaign, and we had people from the city fire department in here to do some, just awareness announcements and where you can and cannot shoot fireworks. And a couple of years ago, they mentioned that part by the airport is now annexed now, so don't be shooting your fireworks out there. So that's why that popped into my head. This has been Missoula Real Estate Today, presented by Diane Beck of Windermere Real Estate on News Talk KGVO. These two have been great. WGM Group's Jamie Urbacher, Senior Planner, and also planning Principal Engineer and CEO, Jeff Smith with WGM. Before we wrap things up, you two, contact information. If anybody is interested in finding out more about WGM Group, what's the path we take there?
Sure. Thanks, Denny. So our direct phone number at the Missoula office is 406-728-4611. Our office is located at 1111 East Broadway.
All right.
Other opportunities that you can search for us are certainly online, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Instagram. And then because of all of our involvement within the community, a lot of times you can find us at community events.
Right. And I guess in about the final 45 seconds, or I thought we were out of time. We still got a few seconds. Anything I missed that you want to make sure we get in there before we wrap it up? We get everything covered? We do good?
I think you did a great job, Denny. Thanks for having us today.
All right.
Really excited about the Midtown Master Plan opportunity that we're working on now. So
yeah.
That's certainly something for folks to engage in. And
we've had
exciting work.
And I'll tell you who echoes your sentiments is the folks that are the executive director of the Missoula Midtown Association. She is just a ball of fire and excited about it too. So you must be doing something right over there, Jeff. Get them all excited. Hey, thanks for being on Missoula Real Estate Today, both of you.
Thank you, Denny.
very much.
Thank you for listening to Missoula Real Estate Today, presented by Diane Beck of Windermere Real Estate. Email dianebeck@windermere.com, or for a complete directory of Diane's listings, visit movetomissoula.com. That's move2, Missoula.com. We'll see you next time on Missoula Real Estate Today.